I told my sister to stop pretending to have allergies and she called the police on me. I've had life-threatening egg and shellfish allergies since I was 3. My sister Alice is 5 years older and perfectly healthy. 6 months ago, she announced she was developing allergies too. She showed our parents a symptom diary and they immediately took her to my allergist. The test came back normal, but Alice said the doctors were wrong. Within a week, she had her own EpiPen. The problem was that my parents couldn't afford both of our medical care. My allergy appointments started getting canceled. My EpiPens weren't getting refilled on time because Alice was having fake emergencies every week that cost hundreds of dollars. Then I started noticing Alice wasn't actually allergic to anything. She claimed she was deathly allergic to peanuts, but I saw her eating Reese's cups at school. She said tree nuts made her throat close, but she was eating almond butter straight from the jar. I realized she was faking everything and it was going to get me killed. I went to my parents one night after dinner. I said, Alice isn't really allergic to anything. I saw her eating peanut butter. My mom shook her head and said, you must be mistaken. I said, I'm not mistaken. She ate an entire Reese's cup in the cafeteria. My dad sighed and said, maybe her allergies aren't as severe as yours. Not everyone reacts the same way. The next day, Alice told them I was trying to poison her. Alice said at dinner, she keeps putting things I'm allergic to in my food because she's jealous. My parents stared at me. My dad asked, is that true? I said, no, she's lying about having allergies. Alice started crying and said, why are you doing this to me? She grabbed her throat and said, I can't breathe. She must have put something in the pasta. My mom ran for Alice's EpiPen. I got grounded for a week. Alice started telling people at school I was dangerous. My friends stopped sitting with me at lunch. Teachers looked at me like I was a psychopath. My own parents started questioning if my allergies were real because Alice made it look so easy to manage hers. They stopped checking labels as carefully. They said I was being overdramatic when I asked them to be careful. Then one night, Alice announced, I'm now allergic to chocolate. I had a reaction at school today and almost died. My mom gasped and said, are you okay? I snapped and said, she's lying. Stop believing her lies. Alice stood up from the table and yelled, I'm sick of you trying to kill me. She grabbed her throat and collapsed on the floor. She was making horrible choking sounds and thrashing around. My dad grabbed his phone and said, I'm calling 911. I walked to Alice's purse on the counter and dumped it out. A half-eaten Snickers bar fell onto the floor. I held it up and said, she's allergic to chocolate and peanuts. Why does she have this? My mom looked at the candy bar and said, Alice? Alice stopped thrashing for a second. Then she started screaming, she planted that. She's trying to frame me. The paramedics showed up 10 minutes later. They checked Alice's vitals while she cried and said she couldn't breathe. One of the paramedics said, your oxygen levels are perfect. Your throat isn't swollen. Alice pointed at me and said, my sister has been poisoning me for months. She's trying to kill me. The paramedic looked confused and said, if you're having anaphylaxis, why aren't you showing any symptoms? Alice yelled, the symptoms are internal. You're not listening to me. Alice grabbed her phone and called 911 again right in front of everyone. She said into the phone, my family is letting me die and my sister is attacking me and I need help right now. The 911 operator said, ma'am, paramedics are already at your location. Alice said, they're not helping me. Send the police. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers walked into our kitchen. Alice was sitting on the floor crying. She said to the officers, she's been trying to murder me and my parents won't do anything about it. The officer looked at the paramedics. One of the paramedics spoke up and said, she called us for a severe allergic reaction, but she has no symptoms. We found candy in her purse that contains her supposed allergens, and she ate it recently. The officer turned to Alice and said, did you call 911 because you're having a medical emergency or because you're having a family argument? Alice pointed at me and said, she's been poisoning me. I have proof. The officer asked, what proof? Alice said, everyone knows she's jealous of me. Ask anyone at school. The officer looked at my parents and asked, is anyone here in immediate danger? My dad shook his head and said, no, I don't think so. The officer looked back at Alice and said, making false emergency calls is a crime. Alice started crying harder and said, you're all letting her get away with trying to kill me. The police left without arresting anyone. My parents made Alice see a psychiatrist who diagnosed her with factitious disorder. It took months of therapy before she admitted she'd been faking. By then, the damage was done. My parents had spent thousands on her fake medical emergencies. I'm 20 now, and Alice and I don't speak.